What is the state of the running back market right now? I mean, we've had a lot of talk out of Indianapolis this week, but what's your take on this?
You know, I would divide it into two categories of takes, if you will. There's the economics of the running back market, and we see what's happening. I mean, Josh Jacobs in Las Vegas. I'm still easing into saying Las Vegas. Jonathan Taylor. Oh, look, we know what's happening from an economic perspective. But I will tell you from a football perspective, and I'll get killed for this, and I don't care. Running backs are important. Everything works together. Your running game helps your passing game. Your passing game helps your running game. If you can't run the ball, the opposing defense can focus entirely on your passing game. If your running game is a big threat, well, then they're going to have to devote defensive resources to stopping the run, which is going to help your passing game. And by the way, as I'm saying this, running backs, you should give me a call because I got your back, no pun intended. People say we don't need a great running game or we don't need to value running backs. Well, let me tell you something. Your offense does need a good running game to help your offense as a whole. And the better your back, the better you're going to be.
Also, when you think about the great players of the National Football League, a lot of them are running backs. Like, I don't understand this, so I'm so happy that you're able to explain this for us.
Well, you know, everybody's very interested in the sexy story of the moment. And for a number of years, we've been hearing that the running game is less important. Let me tell you something. You go to Green Bay when it's freezing outside. And by the way, there were a couple times I thought in Green Bay I was going to end up like the Donner Party. It gets so cold there. You want your running game to work. When the pass rush on the opposing team's defense is ferocious, you want your running game to work. So, yes, I understand the economic realities. Really, I'm the one that signed the checks. I understand the economic realities, but I also value running backs more than a lot of people do.
So what do you counsel them to do then as their counsel?
The running backs?
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had an answer for you, and I'm not going to make one up just for the sake of TV, just for the sake of streaming, just for the sake of radio, just for the sake of our podcast. I don't know how to resolve this, but I do know this. As teams start to realize the value of good running backs, maybe that will shake out a bit.
A lot of people are thinking that there's some collusion amongst the owners to try to not pay running backs. How would that even work?
You know, you're asking someone who went to law school and who spent 30 years in the National Football League, or almost 30 years, to talk about collusion. And I don't think you want my 2-hour answer on the textbook analysis of collusion. I'm guessing you don't want it.
That could be a podcast, though.
It'd be a pretty boring one. You know, there's two issues. Are people colluding, or are people simply reaching the same conclusion without communicating? And those are two entirely different scenarios. And you know, I'm not sure what's going on in that regard, but I do know that I would be handling things a lot differently were I with a team that had a running back that needed to be signed. And by the way, Al Davis took a lot of criticism. Well, he took a lot of criticism for a lot of things, but he took a lot of criticism for paying some players more than the market deemed they should be paid. And you know what? He didn't care. So that's what I would say to the owner of a team who needs to sign his running back. Do what you think is right for your team, and don't worry about what other people are going to perceive your decision to be.
Amy, how much does this have to do with, you know, you look at the team like the Giants, right? So they were in this situation with Saquon Barkley, who ultimately said, look, it's smarter for me to take the $10 million now, renegotiate maybe a 10% raise. I can get $11 million. But they gave their quarterback $40 million when they didn't really have to do that. If they could have given him $35 million, which would have been certainly more than fair for a guy with who's proven it for 1 year in Daniel Jones, and then give the difference to Saquon, and they could have avoided this whole mess. Like, how much does this crazy quarterback market now is trickling down to the running backs?
Well, I mean, it affects everything. If you look at money as a zero-sum game, and it's not really, because as far as the cap goes, the cap is simply a method of accounting. You've got GAAP accounting, you've got tax accounting, you've got cap accounting. We could have a whole show on tax. We could have a whole show on accounting. Would we have anybody who would actually listen? But look, the cap is simply a method of accounting. So if you want to make room to pay someone, you can make room to pay someone. Cash is an issue. Some teams cannot spend as much as others can. Some teams don't wish to or choose not to spend as much money as other teams. But yeah, you know, net. Save money here, you can spend money there. I will say one thing about Saquon, and I said it or I tweeted it. What do I say now? I X'd it?
You X'd it?
You tweeted out. Let's not recognize it.
I shared publicly that I am bothered when fans chime in and criticize a player for making whatever decision that player thinks is in his best interest or his family's best interest. Saquon made a decision that he thought was best for him. That's Saquon's decision to make, to state the obvious. It's his business to state the obvious. And I don't think people should be jumping all over him for making a decision they don't like. It's not your decision.
So that plays into Josh Jacobs. And that plays into that question, which is, what do you think is happening there, and how would Al have handled this situation?
Well, I don't know what's happening inside there. We all know what we saw, which is how Josh performed last year, and that was a perfect example of how important running backs are. I don't like to speak for Al. He was his own man, and I don't speak for him. I like to believe, I think he would have found a way to get it done.
See, why do you think? Just because he was a player's owner?
You know, that's a great question, Suzy. And he said to me from the moment I joined the Raiders until, he said this to me umpteen times throughout my career, the players are the game. And he's right. And he did. He paid players more than other team owners thought he should. There were times at the Combine or at other league events where, he'd get some good ribbing about paying more than people thought he should, and he didn't care.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.